They say you only fear what you can see, but what if the thing stalking you never shows its face? I thought I was going crazy, hearing footsteps behind me at night, lights flickering, shadows shifting. But the worst part? Every time I turned around, there was nothing there. Until last night. That's when I realized it had followed me home. And it wasn't going to leave until I saw what it really was, or became part of it. Disclaimer, this horror story is a work of fiction, crafted purely for entertainment purposes. Some viewers may find certain scenes unsettling or disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. I first noticed it on a Tuesday. The kind of day where everything felt just a little off, clouds hung too low, the wind whispered instead of blowing, and the streetlights flickered long before sunset. I'd just gotten off the bus after my late shift at the diner, the one that runs down Old Maple Street and drops me right in front of my neighborhood. I live alone, a small rented house tucked behind a dying row of hedges. Quiet, ordinary, nothing special. And that's how I liked it. That night, as I walked the familiar path toward my front door, I had the strangest feeling someone was behind me. But every time I looked, the sidewalk was empty. Not a soul. Just the hush of trees swaying gently in the breeze, and the distant hum of a TV in someone's living room. I laughed it off, must have just been the fatigue playing tricks. The double shift was enough to fry anyone's nerves. But when I reached my door, I swear I heard a shuffle. Not on the sidewalk, not behind me, closer. Right behind me. I turned fast. Still nothing. But the air felt colder. Not the kind of cold you notice physically, but something else, something that makes your skin tighten and your instincts scream at you to move, run, hide. I fumbled with my keys, cursed softly under my breath, and darted inside. The second the door closed, I leaned against it and listened. Silence. Maybe a distant all. My hands were shaking. No reason. At least, that's what I told myself. I should have checked the yard. I should have walked around the house. I should have made sure I was alone. But I didn't. I just turned on the lights, fed my cat, and sat on the couch like it was any other night. That's when the knock came. Just one knock. Not loud. Not urgent. Just wrong. I peeked through the curtain. No one on the porch. No footsteps in the yard. But the porch light had gone out. It worked fine earlier, I was sure of it. Still, no one there. No package. No prankster kids. Just quiet again. I told myself not to worry. Locked the door, double-checked the windows. My cat, Muffin, was already curled under the coffee table, watching the door with wide, unblinking eyes. She'd never done that before. Normally, she's climbing the curtains or meowing for food. But that night, she just stared. As if she knew something I didn't. The night dragged on. Around 2 a.m., I woke up from the couch, must have dozed off. The TV was still on, but the picture was all static. No sound, just that soft hiss. The lights in the kitchen flickered once, then again. Then they stayed off. I sat up, rubbing my eyes. That feeling was back. That same breath on the neck sensation. But I was inside. Doors locked. Windows latched. I told myself I was safe. I had to be. Then I saw it. Just past the hallway, in the sliver of darkness between the flickering kitchen and my bedroom door, something moved. Slow. Too slow to be natural. But deliberate. I couldn't make out a face. I couldn't even tell if it had one. It didn't speak. It didn't make a sound. But I knew it saw me. I froze. My chest tightened. My heartbeat thumped so loud it drowned out the static from the TV. I couldn't move. Couldn't scream. Couldn't breathe. And then, just like that, it was gone. No sound. No trace. Just the hallway, dark and still. Like nothing had ever been there. But I knew. Something had followed me home. And it hadn't shown its face. Not yet. The thing is, I don't remember unlocking the door. I don't remember opening it. But maybe I didn't have to. Maybe it was already inside. And now, every night, just after I turn out the lights, I feel it watching. From somewhere too close. Closer than I dare to look. I never saw its face. But I know it's waiting. And tonight, something tells me I will. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I just lay there in bed with the blanket pulled up to my chin, staring at the ceiling and listening. Listening for something, anything, that might give it away. A creak. A breath. The soft shuffle of feet. But there was nothing. Just silence. Not peaceful silence, though. This kind felt tense. Like the house itself was holding its breath. Even Muffin didn't come near the bed. She stayed in the far corner of the room, curled into a tight ball with her back to the door. And for the first time since I brought her home, she didn't purr once. By morning, the shadow was gone. At least, I thought it was. I got up slowly, moved through the house with the kind of caution you'd use in unfamiliar territory. The hallway looked the same. The kitchen lights still flickered when I turned them on. My coffee machine hissed like usual, and the TV worked again. Normal. But not right. I could feel it, this wasn't over. I called in sick to work. Told them I had the flu. No one argued. I guess I sounded as awful as I felt. I spent most of the day staring at the front door, convinced that if I blinked too long, it would open on its own. It never did. Not that day. I started checking the windows obsessively, pulling back the curtains just enough to peek through. I didn't see anything out of place. No footprints on the porch. No strange faces in the crowd. But one thing stood out: my neighbor across the street, Mr. Lane, was watching me. Just standing by his window, staring. No wave. No nod. Just watching. And when I looked away and peeked again, he was gone. Like he'd never been there. That night, it got worse. The air inside my house turned heavy, like the walls were closing in. Lights flickered again, longer this time, and the temperature dropped so suddenly I could see my breath. Muffin hissed at the hallway, arched her back, then darted under the bed. I was about to follow her when the power went out. Completely. Not just the lights, everything. The TV, the fridge, the hum of the heater. Silence swallowed everything. And then came the knocking. Not from the door. This time, it came from inside. From the walls. A slow, deliberate knock, spaced just far enough apart to feel unnatural. I stood in the middle of the room, back pressed to the wall, trying not to breathe too loudly. The knocking moved from one wall to another. Like it was circling me. Like it was looking for a way in, even though it was already inside. I tried calling someone. Anyone. But my phone wouldn't turn on. Dead. No signal, no battery, just a black screen that stared back at me. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. Something in me knew, it wanted me to. I started whispering to myself, just little things to stay grounded. My name, my address, the year. But even those felt distant, like I was slowly being pulled away from myself. That's when I remembered something. A story I'd overheard a few years ago. An old woman at the diner used to talk about this house, my house. She said there was something wrong with it. That people didn't stay long. That they left in the middle of the night without taking their things. I thought she was just rambling. But now I wasn't so sure. I wanted to leave. I really did. But every time I moved toward the door, the knocking started again, louder, faster, more insistent. Like it knew what I was thinking. Like it was warning me. Then something whispered my name. Not outside. Not in the walls. But inside my head. A soft, cold voice that didn't echo, it just was. I covered my ears, but it didn't help. It said my name again. And then, you brought me home. I ran to the bathroom, locked the door, and turned on the faucet just to hear something real. The mirror fogged up quickly from the steam, and I stared at it, half expecting something to appear behind me. But nothing did. Except, when I turned away, I noticed something scratched faintly into the mirror's surface. For words. I didn't put them there. No one did. Don't turn around again. And the worst part? I already had. I didn't open the bathroom door until daylight crept in under the edges. Even then, I hesitated. It was like stepping into a house that no longer belonged to me. The air was still, unnaturally quiet, as if the night had sunk its claws deep into the walls and just decided to stay. I held my breath and inched the door open. No sound. No movement. The apartment looked untouched, but something about it felt wrong. Like a dream you wake up from but can't shake off. The writing on the mirror was still there. Fainter, like it had started to fade, but not from time. From something else. I reached out to touch it, and my fingertip froze an inch away. The glass wasn't cold, it pulsed. Just once. Like it breathed. I stumbled backward and left the bathroom without even looking back. I needed out. Out of the house. Out of whatever this was. I grabbed my coat, shoved Muffin into her carrier, and stepped out onto the porch. I didn't lock the door behind me. Something told me it wouldn't matter. The sun was barely up, casting that sleepy gold light over everything. The neighborhood looked the same. Lawns still overgrown, wind chimes clinking softly, someone's sprinkler turning lazily across the grass. It looked normal, but it didn't feel it. As I walked toward my car, I noticed Mr. Lane again. Across the street. Standing completely still on his front lawn, barefoot, wearing a buttoned-up shirt like he'd just rolled out of bed. He stared at me, unblinking. But this time, he spoke. "You shouldn't have brought it out," he said. I froze. What? He didn't move. They never stay quiet once you let them in. Who? I asked, stepping forward. What are you talking about? He opened his mouth, but the sound that came out wasn't words. It was static. The same white noise that poured from my TV that night. He kept making that sound until his eyes rolled back, and he collapsed like a marionette with its strings cut. I screamed and ran to him, nearly dropping Muffin's carrier in the process. But when I reached him, he was breathing. Eyes shut, skin pale, but alive. I called 911 from a neighbor's porch. The ambulance came in under 10 minutes. They took him away, and I watched them load him up like it was happening to someone else. The EMT asked if I knew him well. I said not really. We didn't talk. But I didn't tell them what he said. I didn't know how. I drove straight to my sister's place across town. I didn't care how early it was. She opened the door in her bathrobe, confused, blinking sleep from her eyes. I asked if I could stay for a few days. She saw my face and didn't ask questions. I thought maybe I could run from it. That whatever followed me home would stay behind if I just left. But the thing is, it didn't start at home. That place was just where it got close. That night, I stayed in the guest room, and for a while, it felt safe. Normal. My sister brought me tea. Muffin settled into the windowsill. I thought maybe I'd imagined the worst of it. Stress. Hallucination. Maybe even a breakdown. But just before I fell asleep, my sister came into the room and sat at the edge of the bed. I turned on the lamp. What's wrong? I asked. She looked at me strangely. Her eyes wide. Her voice barely a whisper. You shouldn't have brought her here. My blood went cold. What? She was at the window, she said, eyes locked on the glass behind me. She smiled at me. I spun around. Nothing there. When I looked back, my sister was gone. The teacup she brought clattered to the floor, spilling cold liquid. The indent on the bed was still warm. But the hallway beyond the open door was dark. Too dark. I stepped into the hall, calling her name. No answer. And then that voice again. Inside my head. You gave me a door. I stumbled back. The walls groaned like they were alive. From every direction, shadows began to stretch unnaturally long across the floor. Somewhere, from inside the walls, I heard knocking again. But this time, it was from multiple places at once. The walls groaned again, deeper this time. It wasn't just the house, it was something inside it. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over the edge of the hallway rug. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped Muffin's carrier. She let out a low growl, then bolted from it the moment the latch clicked open. I turned to follow her but stopped when I saw the shadows on the floor. They were no longer stretching, they were moving. Crawling like they were alive. Reaching for my feet with long, jagged fingers of pure darkness. I ran. Room to room, calling my sister's name, but the house didn't even echo anymore. It absorbed sound, like the air had thickened with silence. Every light I turned on flickered and died. Every mirror I passed showed my reflection, but delayed. As if it were watching me, reacting to me too late. The kitchen window was open. I hadn't noticed before. Curtains flapping like they were trying to escape. I rushed to it and looked out. The street was gone. No cars. No trees. Just black. Not night, not fog, nothingness. As if the entire neighborhood had been erased. My chest tightened. I couldn't breathe. I turned back and the kitchen tiles were different. Dirty, cracked, stained with something too dark to be old coffee. The fridge door stood open, humming loudly. Inside, instead of shelves or food, there was a narrow stairwell, wooden, rotted, descending into pitch-black darkness that didn't belong in this world. I slammed it shut. The hum stopped instantly. But in the silence, something scratched from inside. I backed out slowly, only to hear footsteps upstairs. Soft, slow, deliberate. Not pacing, searching. My sister's bedroom was up there. But I hadn't seen her. Hadn't heard her since the moment she sat on the bed and whispered about the woman in the window. And the way she vanished. People don't disappear like that. Not unless they aren't really people anymore. Against every instinct I had, I crept toward the stairs. Each one creaked louder than the last. Halfway up, the temperature dropped again. I could see my breath. My fingers were turning numb. At the top of the stairs, the hallway stretched longer than it should have. Doors I didn't remember were on either side, and at the end, her bedroom door stood wide open, but all I could see was black inside. I called her name one last time. A voice answered. Not hers. You opened the mirror. That's how she got in. I don't know how I stayed standing. My knees felt like they would collapse. The hallway floor beneath my feet groaned and buckled, as though it might cave in. I pressed my hand against the wall to steady myself, only it wasn't the wall. It was warm. Breathing. I pulled back with a scream. The hallway shifted. The doors began to open one by one, slowly, painfully, creaking with a sound like bones breaking. From inside each room, whispers spilled out, dozens of voices, all speaking in reverse. Familiar tones. My voice. My sister's. My mother's. Voices I hadn't heard in years, but twisted into something unrecognizable. Then a face appeared at the far end of the hallway. Not walking. Not moving. Just appearing. Slowly fading into view, like it was always there and the house was finally letting me see it. No eyes. No mouth. Just skin stretched too tightly over a human shape, like something pretending to be one of us. It raised a hand and pointed at me. The walls shivered. Every light bulb in the house shattered at once. I dropped to the floor, covering my ears as the sound exploded like gunfire. When I looked up, it was closer. Halfway down the hallway now. I ran for the stairs, but the steps were gone. In their place was an endless void, sucking the light straight into it. Trapped. No exit. No plan. I backed into my sister's bedroom, slamming the door behind me. But there was no comfort there. On the bed sat my sister. Her back to me. Motionless. Whispering to herself in a low, rhythmic chant. I reached for her shoulder, trembling. She turned around slowly. It wasn't her. She turned toward me with a slow, jerky movement, like every bone in her neck cracked at once. Her face, at first, looked like my sister's. Same soft eyes, same gentle smile. But then it changed. The skin stretched too far when she smiled wider. Her eyes didn't blink. They didn't even move. And when she opened her mouth, it wasn't her voice that came out. It was mine. You're the reason it came back, she whispered in my exact tone. You brought it home. And now it knows where to stay. I staggered backward, slamming against the doorframe. The walls of the room began to breathe again, in and out, like the house itself was alive and listening. The floor shifted under my feet, turning soft and unstable like wet clay. Every inch of the room was wrong, nothing was staying still. The window pulsed like a heartbeat. The ceiling cracked in wide circles, revealing something like skin beneath the plaster. She stood up slowly, feet dragging against the wood, but her legs didn't bend. As if they weren't really legs at all. You always felt it, didn't you? She said, still in my voice, still with my face. Even before the house. That shadow. That weight. I tried to speak, but my throat was too tight. I could barely breathe. It was like the room was closing in on me, folding in from every side. And then came the worst part. From the mirror beside the bed, I saw myself. But not as I was now. No, this version of me was pale, lifeless, and behind glass. Like I'd never made it out of that first night. Like everything since had been some kind of trick. Some kind of loop. Suddenly, every moment started to replay in my head. The knocking, the whispers, the flickering lights, my cat hiding, the words in the mirror, the neighbor collapsing, my sister's warning, the static. All of it, every terrifying moment, wasn't trying to haunt me. It was trying to trap me. The woman thing, wearing my sister's face, tilted her head. "You think you left the house, didn't you?" she whispered. "You never left. You never even made it to the door." And the memory hit me, sharp, sudden, undeniable. I remembered fumbling with my keys that very first night. I remembered finally unlocking the front door. I remembered stepping inside. And then, nothing. No lights turning on. No cat running to greet me. Just silence. My hands started to tremble again as I backed up, only to hit something behind me. I turned, and I was at the foot of the same hallway again. Not my sister's house. My house. The kitchen. The old couch. The hallway. The house had restarted. And the worst part was, the front door was now bricked shut. Not locked. Not stuck. Just gone. Like it had never existed. Muffin ran across the living room, screeching, and dove under the table. I followed her, dropping to my knees. My hands felt like ice. I peeked under the table to reach for her and saw something else there. A child's drawing. Crumpled. Faded. Scribbled in red crayon. It showed a figure, me, standing in front of the house, while a black shape hovered above. In the corner, written over and over again, were the words, "It came from the mirror. You let it in." Suddenly, a deep voice echoed from somewhere below the floorboards. "Now we are one." The floor cracked open beneath me. Dark hands, hundreds of them, reached up, grabbing my legs, my arms, pulling me into the floor like it was water. I screamed, kicked, tried to claw my way out, but the wood kept breaking away under me. I couldn't get a grip. I was sinking, being swallowed. And then everything went black. Just for a moment. When I opened my eyes, I was back on the couch. The TV was playing static again. The kitchen light flickered. My cat stared at me from the hallway. Everything was just as it was that first night. Like nothing had ever happened. But something had. I looked down at my arms. Long, dark fingerprints were burned into my skin. I turned my head slowly toward the hallway. A mirror hung on the wall now. One I'd never seen before. In its reflection, I wasn't alone. Something stood behind me, smiling. "Now you tell me. What would you do in this situation? Do you think the protagonist will survive, or has she already lost?" She didn't turn around. She couldn't. The air behind her was too still, too thick, like the house was holding its breath. Her eyes stayed locked on the mirror, the dark figure standing just inches from her back. It wasn't moving. Not yet. But she felt it, felt the coldness radiating through her spine, reaching through her skin like fingers digging into her bones. She whispered to herself, "This isn't real. It can't be real." But it was. Her cat, Muffin, let out a low growl from the hallway. Then a hiss, sharp and loud. The moment it broke the silence, the lights in the living room exploded, sending glass spraying like frozen rain. She ducked instinctively, her heart pounding like a drum. The static from the TV rose in volume, climbing higher and higher until it sounded like screaming. She stood, shaking, barefoot, exhausted, but done running. "No more," she whispered. The mirror rippled like water, and the figure inside took a step forward, but not in the reflection. Into the room. Its foot touched the floor in front of her. She stumbled back, grabbing the nearest object she could find, an iron fireplace poker from beside the cold hearth. It felt heavy in her hands, real. It gave her something to hold on to, something solid in the midst of all the madness. The figure raised its hand, slow and stiff like a puppet. Her body locked up, just like before. Muscles tight. Breath shallow. That paralyzing fear, it wanted her frozen. That's how it won. But not this time. With a scream that tore her throat raw, she charged at it. She swung the iron rod straight through its midsection, and it let out a sound, something between a shriek and a roar, like it had never felt pain before. The moment the rod passed through its body, the walls began to bleed black from the corners, like the house itself was reacting. The mirror cracked. Once. twice, then shattered entirely. But the thing wasn't gone. It grabbed her wrist with its freezing fingers. Her vision blurred as its face leaned in close. Still no features. Just a swirl of blackness, like it had stolen faces over time and never kept one. "You should have stayed quiet," it whispered, now in her sister's voice. Her knees buckled. She was slipping again into the floor, into the fear, into the same cycle. But this time, she reached into her pocket. The lighter. The one she'd used during the last power outage, still there. She flicked it. The flame danced, small but steady. "Let go of me," she growled, "or I burn you down." The thing paused. Only for a second. But she saw it fear. It remembered fire. Without hesitating, she reached over and lit the curtain beside her. The flame jumped fast, too fast. The room lit up with a roar. The thing shrieked, backing into the wall, melting into the shadows like wax under heat. The walls screamed. The floor shook. The entire house seemed to resist, but the fire kept climbing. She grabbed Muffin, shielding her with one arm, and kicked through the back door. It wasn't bricked shut this time. It burst open with one solid hit, and cold air flooded in. Real air. Night air. Crisp and alive. She ran. The house behind her glowed orange, flames curling out of the broken windows. But something else happened. The shadows inside the house, hundreds of them, rushed to the windows. Not trying to escape. Just watching. And in the center of them, the thing stood again, burning but not falling, holding her face in its hands. Smiling. It didn't scream. It didn't fight. It simply watched her go. As she collapsed onto the street, gasping for air, she looked back once more. The house was engulfed. But as the fire rose, the structure began to fade, not crumble. Piece by piece, it blinked out of existence. And then it was gone. No ashes. No ruins. Just grass and trees where the house had once been. Muffin meowed in her arms. She sat there, shaking, staring at the empty space where her life had been. A neighbor approached. Someone she didn't recognize. An older woman. Wrinkled. Pale. "You saw it, didn't you?" the woman asked, kneeling beside her. She couldn't speak. Just nodded. The woman smiled gently. "You got out. Most don't." And then she added one final thing, something that hollowed her out completely. "But now it knows your face." The paramedics found her sitting in the street at dawn, clutching her cat and staring at nothing. She didn't speak for a long time, not at the hospital, not when the police questioned her, not even when her real sister finally showed up with tears in her eyes, asking what had happened. And what could she say? That the house caught fire on its own and then vanished? That something followed her home from nowhere, tore open her life, and left her with burn marks on her skin and memories that didn't seem possible? No one would believe it. Hell, she barely believed it. The official report claimed the fire was a gas leak. Nothing unusual. No sign of arson. No sign the house had ever been remodeled, let alone twisted into something impossible. And when they checked the property records, they found something stranger still. The address never existed. The number had been skipped, the lot left vacant for decades. Just an empty patch of grass until she moved in. She tried to go back to her old life. She really did. Moved in with her sister for a while, found another job at a different diner, changed her number, got a new phone. The scratches on her arms faded. The bruises went away. But the silence never did. Every mirror she passed made her skin crawl. Every knock on the door made her flinch. And every now and then, in the late hours of the night, Muffin would sit by the window and growl softly at the glass. Like she was waiting for something to return. She tried therapy too. The doctors called it trauma-induced hallucinations. A coping mechanism. Stress. Sleep deprivation. They offered pills. Night meds. She took them for a while. But they didn't help. Not really. Because deep down, she knew it wasn't just in her head. Sometimes, she'd catch herself staring too long at her reflection, waiting to see if it blinked back at the wrong time. Other times, she'd hear static from a muted TV or feel that same tight pressure in her chest, the one that made her freeze, that made her remember. And once, just once, she walked past an alleyway and saw a figure standing in the shadows. Not moving. Not speaking. Just watching. When she turned to look again, it was gone. But the fear stayed. Still, she told herself it was over. The house was gone. The thing had burned. Whatever power it had used to trap her, it had lost. Until the envelope arrived. Plain white. No return address. Slipped through the mail slot one rainy evening. Inside, one item. A photo. Black and white. Faded. It showed her standing in front of the mirror, her back to the camera, but in the reflection, the faceless thing loomed over her shoulder, closer than ever. The caption written in red ink at the bottom read, "You never left." She dropped the envelope, shaking. Ran to the bathroom. Turned on every light. Looked in the mirror. Nothing there but her own pale, tired face. She waited. Held her breath. Then something blinked behind her. She spun around. Empty. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. One new voicemail. She played it. Static. A whisper. Her own voice. "Don't look behind you this time." She dropped the phone. Muffin hissed and bolted from the room. Her legs wouldn't move. Her eyes drifted slowly toward the mirror again. And this time, her reflection was smiling. But she wasn't. What would you do if this happened to you? Would you look behind you? Or would you close your eyes and pretend it's not real? Let us know in the comments below. And tell us, do you think she'll ever really escape? Or is the mirror waiting for you next?